Hey, how's it going? David Taub here with Epic Guitar Instruction. Hope all's going well, and I hope your guitar and musical journeys are going famously. Today I have for you 4 really cool tips for recording guitars, whether it's in the studio or at home. And these tips are interesting because, there's lots of videos out there with, best studio or best recording tips, and a lot of it is the same and it's all good. So I wanted to give you some different things to think about. These tips are to help you try to get the best performance possible, because really that's all it's about, right? When you go into the studio or when you're recording at home, it's all about the performance, playing your parts extremely well and capturing that magic. And there's a lot of really super important tips out there, but you probably know a lot of those already. The stuff like, make sure all your pre-production work is done. So you go into the studio and you know your parts backwards and forwards and you can concentrate on the performance, right? Tips like, getting it right at the source. All the greatest sounds, right? They're created at the source, at your guitar, pretty much, right? You don't want to have that we'll fix it in post later kind of attitude. You want to make sure at the source you're getting the best signal, the best possible sounds. About guitar tuning and about your tuner, here's the thing, whether you're using a little clip-on tuner or a foot box, a stomp box tuner, or maybe one on your app or something on the board, whatever tuner you're using, here's something to keep in mind. Make sure everyone in the band is using the same tuner, right? And all the stringed instruments, if you're bringing in bass players or another guitar player, or you're playing other, someone else is coming in to play parts, stringed instruments, use the same tuner for everyone, because all these tuners, they're all just a little bit different. And although they'll all get you in that realm of being close to being in tune or perfectly in tune, one may not be as calibrated as the other one. Like if your guitar player is using one and the bass player is using another one and the other guitar player is using a different one, they're all a little bit different. And although they'll get you in the realm of playing in tune, once you start layering those instruments on top of one another, and if the tuners are not exactly lined up, it might sound a little bit off, just a little bit, that nagging little thing that you hear that just is bothering you. And that might be it, and that's about the tuning. The other thing is make sure you are tuning often. Don't just tune once before you play and then you're done for the day, right? You should be tuning like after every take. Just check it, make sure, because that's something that you really don't want to have to fix afterwards. And if you'd like to get some free content, I'll tell you what, I'll send you a free video lesson in ebook. It'll really help you along in your guitar journey. The ebook is packed with scale diagrams and soloing strategies and lessons, major, minor key, music theory. It's a great reference tool you'll use throughout your guitar journey. And the video lesson is killer. It's not on YouTube. It's extended play. Really help you along. I'll just click on that link below. I'll send them both to you for free. Next, it's very important that you have fresh strings on your guitar. Everybody knows that, right? And also that your guitar is set up right. But the biggest thing I found is the guitar intonation. It really needs to be dead on, because you're talking about playing and layering it with other instruments. And if your intonation is a little bit off, right, where maybe it doesn't seem off, but maybe it's just a little bit off, you might hear that when you start layering those instruments together. And that's something that, it'd be really hard to figure out, right? You're hearing it and it's just, something's just a tad off. Sometimes it's that intonation on your guitar. If your guitar is not intonated properly and you're getting slightly different pitches of the same notes at various parts on the guitar, that is something that you might hear a little bit nagging, kind of, something just isn't quite right. It just isn't sounding perfect. Make sure that intonation is dead bang on, because again, that's something, if it's off, you're not going to be able to fix that later. That's something where you might have you record the greatest track and you're totally happy with it, and then it ends up, it's off, and then you have to redo it again because you're not going to be able to fix it. Another tip you might find helpful is when you're recording your guitars, get the guitar cabinet or the amp, if you're using like a combo amp, but basically the cabinet, the speakers, get that up off the floor. Because what happens sometimes, what could be happening is the floor, actually, when you start pumping, right, that guitar cabinet, the floor could be vibrating a bit with the cabinet. And that could be causing this artificial kind of sense of low end, right? And that could really make the track sound a little bit muddy. And if that's what you're getting, that's really hard to EQ that artificial low end out. So you want to make sure you isolate that guitar cabinet from the floor to keep that from happening. And you can do that a number of different ways. Use like moving blankets. You just put a moving blanket down, you put some padding down, and then put your guitar cabinet. Or some type of isolating material, or get the cabinet up in the air, get it on a stand, something, but get it isolated off the floor. And if you have a second, if you could do me a quick favor, please subscribe to the channel. Subscribing to the channel, that really helps us to keep bringing the content, right? As well as then you'll be notified when we have new lessons posted. Also, leave a comment below. Let me know what lessons you'd like to see coming up, what gear you'd like to see reviewed. And if you like the video, please click the like button. Give it a thumbs up, share it, and thank you so much for your support. And the fourth tip that may help you is, let's talk about double tracking the guitars for a second. And double tracking is something that's certainly not new and that most people know about and that most people do, right? You record your guitar part. Let's say if you're doing a rhythm track, and then you record a second one, right? And you put them on top of each other, and you pan one to the left, pan the other one to the right, and that helps to make the guitars sound bigger, right? You don't want them necessarily louder, you want them bigger, more space. That spaces them out, and that's very desirable. And most are doing that, but let me give you a couple tips when it comes to that. And by the way, I get a lot of questions about that. Like some players say, well, why don't I just do one take and then I'll just copy it and then paste it in and then paste the second one on top of it, and there's a double track. That's not double tracking. All that's going to do is going to give you a louder sounding guitar that's more in the center, right? Because the whole purpose of double tracking or taping or taking 2 takes or triple tracking 3 takes and putting them on top of another is you're creating that bigger sound, because each time you play the part, you're not playing it 100% exactly perfectly as you did the time before. And if you look at the sound wave, you could see that it's not exactly lined up 100%. It's a little bit off. And that's what you want, because that little bit, there's your space, right? That's what's filling up that sound, is that little bit of variation in the tracks. And just because you're doing 2 tracks and layering doesn't necessarily mean that 3 is better, that 4 is better, that 5 is better. If you keep stacking and stacking, you're going to end up making the guitar sound smaller, not bigger. Oftentimes, I find 2 tracks, depending on the music and the style and what you're trying to get across, doubled 2 tracks is enough. But here's the thing, sometimes when you start tracking and doubling on top, especially if it's a dense mix, a lot of other instrumentation, a lot of stuff going on, sometimes 2 is even a lot if you're doing the exact same thing in each take. And then it starts to muddy up the mix a bit. So here's something to think about. Do your double tracking, but don't do the exact same parts for both. Well, what do I mean by that? It's like, okay, you do your one rhythm track with the full-on chords. The second one, maybe instead of doing the same exact thing as you did the first one, do like just octaves and do them an octave higher than the chords you played. Then put those 2 together. Sounds really, really good. Or maybe the track isn't going to call for all that mix and space, all that mix and space of the guitars with both tracks exactly the same. Maybe just record as the second track just the root notes, just the low root notes. Play those and put those on top, and sometimes that's all you need. Other times I've found this, like a lot of players will do a take and then they'll just go right back and do a second take, and there's the double. And sometimes that's exactly what they're looking for and it sounds great. But I've experimented a lot with doing things like, with that second take, I'll use a different guitar tone. I'll use a guitar with less gain, or an amp setting with less gain. So I have my full-on, gain sound here, and then I'll do another take with a guitar with less gain, lay them on top of each other, and that gives me a really cool sound. Or sometimes I use a different guitar. Like when I recorded my last record, Absolute, with my original band Mindcell, a lot of the rhythm tracks, I had one guitar that was really bright and punchy and another guitar which was much darker. But I found out when I recorded the same takes with each and then layered them, it sounded really, really good. So you can get some great sounds when you have a little different sounding instruments or different sounding settings, but you're playing the same thing basically, or close, or octaves or whatever, and then laying those on top of each other and you're doubling. So the trick is to experiment, right? It's not just, you don't have to just play the one part and then just go right back and do the exact same thing with the same guitar and the same settings. Although you might want to, because that might sound really good and be what you're looking for. I'm just giving you some suggestions. Especially if, again, if it's a dense mix, and especially if things start to get really muddied up. Remember, get that low end off. You don't need, a lot of times it's too much low end. Get the mids up. Like I always say, the guitars are more of a mid-based instrument. And when we're recording, don't record your levels too high, because those peaks that you hit and it clips, they're hard to take out in the mix. You want to record your sound lower and leave a little bit of space so you have room for in the mixing and the mastering, right? So don't record your levels too hot. That's a thing of the past. You don't need to do that now with digital. So keep in mind that these little things, maybe just doubling but with octaves or doubling just with the root note, that might be all it needs to thicken up the guitars and to give it that space. Just something to try. Keep in mind, get it right at the source, right? Get it right from the start. It makes things much easier later. Don't have this, well, I'll fix it in post later. No, never have that attitude. Get it right at the source. It'll make it so much easier. And just remember, if it sucks at the beginning, it's going to suck at the end. You know what I mean? You're not going to be able to fix the sucking. There's the suck knob. Turn it down. Turn it off, right? It's about getting that best possible performance. I hope these tips help you along in your recording guitars journey. Have fun with them. Let me know some of your favorite tips. Leave comments below. We'll get some dialogue going on. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel. That really helps us to keep the content coming, and then you'll be notified when we have new lessons posted. And click on that link in the YouTube description box below. I'll send you a free video lesson and ebook. It'll really help you along in your guitar journey for free. Send them both to you. Just click on that link. And if you want to check out some of my original music, I recently dropped a new record with my original band Mind Cell. We're based out of Southern California, San Diego. It's a slamming record. I'm really stoked how it came out, and I'm really excited about the tones that I got from my guitars. But check it out. I'll leave a link below. It's streaming on all the platforms. You know, give it a listen and let me know what you think. And if you have any questions on the gear or the tones or the songs or the studio production, drop me a line. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I wish you the best. Stay tuned. I got lots more lessons and videos and gear reviews coming up soon. Keep up all that hard work on those guitars. Have fun with them, and remember, your guitar playing is an evolution. So enjoy the journey. Take care, rock on. I'll see you in the next lesson.